The British monarchy has faced political scandals and family feuds before, but never both, at once and from within. For centuries, the crown stood as a symbol of continuity, timeless, unshaken, and above the noise of public discord. But now, the IT walls of that tradition are beginning to tremble. Not because of an external threat or a rebellion from the people, but because of an internal unraveling that threatens to expose every carefully guarded fracture within the House of Windsor. Royal titles, once sacred emblems of duty and honor, now lie at the center of a national and emotional reckoning. The question isn't just whether a prince deserves to keep his titles, it's whether the monarchy itself can survive the storm without losing the very soul of what it means to serve. In modern Britain, the once unquestioned sanctity of the royal family is being redefined under the harsh glare of public opinion and political scrutiny. Gone are the days when quiet suffering behind palace walls was seen as noble. Today, the nation demands more: transparency, empathy, and a willingness to evolve. And nowhere is that transformation more visible than in Prince William. Once a guarded heir shaped by protocol and legacy, he is now stepping into an unfamiliar role of future king, navigating not only statecraft, but emotional minefields laid by decades of silence, grief, and betrayal. His every move is weighed not just as a royal, but as a man trying to reconcile the weight of his lineage with the humanity of his brother. But even as William begins to forge a new path, one that prioritizes mental health, family, and emotional honesty, the institution he represents remains tethered to old ghosts. It's not just the whispers from the press that haunt the palace, it's the growing tension within Parliament. The House of Lords, typically a bastion of tradition, has erupted with a petition that could make history: a formal move to strip Prince Harry of his royal titles. What once would have been considered unthinkable is now being debated with shocking seriousness. It's no longer just tabloid fodder, it's a constitutional debate with emotional roots planted deep in royal blood. This moment marks a transformation not just in how the monarchy is viewed, but in how it views itself. Behind the pageantry, the strained smiles, and the curated appearances lies a truth that can no longer be ignored. The old rules of loyalty and silence have failed to protect the House of Windsor from itself. As the family tries to maintain its image, the emotional cost is becoming impossible to conceal. The very titles that once bound them in duty have now become chains, symbols of unresolved trauma and public judgment. And as Prince William attempts to carry the crown into a new era, the shadow of this petition grows darker by the day, threatening to pull the past and present into a clash no royal can ignore. But even as William seeks to modernize the crown emotionally, an older conflict resurfaces with the power to break the family, once and for all. It started quietly, just whispers, in Westminster, but now it threatens to change the monarchy forever. What began as a murmur among peers in the House of Lords has ignited into a firestorm that the royal family can no longer ignore. The petition, fueled by frustration, betrayal, and political necessity, calls for the formal removal of Prince Harry's remaining royal titles. It's more than a bureaucratic request. It's a symbolic reckoning. The country that once adored Harry for his rebellious charm and emotional candor is now demanding accountability. This isn't about punishing a prince, it's about drawing a line in the sand between tradition and rebellion, loyalty and perceived betrayal. The timing couldn't be more telling. In a post-pandemic Britain, the public's appetite for privilege without duty has grown thin. Parliament, sensing the shift in sentiment, began leaning into questions the monarchy has long avoided. Why should someone who left the institution, openly criticized it, and sought financial independence from it, still hold on to its most prestigious titles? The petition's supporters, both inside and outside the chamber, argue that royal status must be earned through consistent public service, not inherited and then wielded from afar. It's not a unanimous view, but the momentum behind it is undeniable. What once would have been dismissed as political theater now stands on the cusp of altering royal history. At the center of this storm are individuals who've known Harry his entire life. Insiders within the royal household, advisors, courtiers, even family members are reportedly divided. Some are stunned it took this long, privately murmuring that Harry's actions since his departure were too provocative to overlook. Others, however, warn that this move risks turning a family dispute into a constitutional crisis. Yet even the more cautious voices are finding it harder to justify inaction as public pressure mounts and headlines grow harsher by the day. The palace, so often composed in the face of scandal, now finds itself scrambling not just to manage a narrative, but to contain a growing sense of inevitability. Outside the walls of privilege and protocol, the public has made its voice heard. Polls show overwhelming support for the petition, with citizens across age groups and political lines aligning on a single truth. The crown must uphold standards or risk losing credibility. It's no longer enough to protect titles out of tradition. The people now demand relevance, integrity, and above all, fairness. And to many, that means cutting the final ceremonial ties between Harry and the institution he walked away from. The same prince who once walked behind his mother's coffin, adored by millions, is now being viewed through a much darker lens, no longer the prodigal son, but a man perceived to have abandoned his birthright for spectacle. Stripping Harry of his titles would be unprecedented in modern times, but it would also be deeply symbolic. It would mark a shift, not just in royal policy, but in the soul of the monarchy itself. A move like this would be an unmistakable message that blood is no longer enough, that behavior, not birth, defines one's place within the royal fold. And it would also, intentionally or not, further isolate Harry from a family that already treats him like an outsider. The monarchy stands at the brink of defining what it truly values: tradition or transformation, unity or consequence. But behind every petition is a family, and this one's wounds run far deeper than Parliament ever anticipated. Once the people's prince, Harry now finds himself a pariah on both sides of the Atlantic. His fall from grace is not just a matter of public perception, it's a story soaked in betrayal, grief, rebellion, and the crushing cost of defiance. He was the boy who captured hearts with his cheeky smile, the soldier who chose danger over luxury, the royal who seemed most like one of us. And yet, somewhere between royal banquets and podcast microphones, that image crumbled. What remains is a man torn between worlds, neither fully royal nor entirely free. And as the petition to strip him of his titles gains steam, it's not just his status on the line, it's the legacy of everything he once represented. It didn't happen overnight. The descent began with a love story that quickly turned into a lightning rod for global opinion. When Harry married Meghan Markle, the world cheered. It was modern, bold, and promised to inject new life into an aging institution. But behind the curtain, friction was brewing. Allegations of racism, cold shoulders from courtiers, and tabloid smear campaigns hardened the couple's resolve. Their decision to step back, dubbed Megxit, marked the moment the rupture became irreversible. Suddenly, Harry was no longer a symbol of duty and charm. He was a wild card, an outsider, a threat to the very crown that shaped him. And once he crossed that threshold, there was no turning back. The media war that followed was brutal and relentless. From Oprah interviews to headline-grabbing Netflix specials, Harry and Meghan launched an offensive rarely seen from ex-royals. They didn't just walk away, they told the world why. Family secrets were exposed, institutions criticized, and the monarchy's silence interpreted as guilt. On their podcasts, they spoke of mental health struggles, of being unheard, unseen, unprotected. But what they hoped would be a reckoning quickly began to backfire. The more they spoke, the more public empathy eroded. What began as a cry for justice soon looked, to many, like a campaign for relevance. And behind the polished appearances and carefully scripted interviews, something far more tragic was unfolding. Harry, once surrounded by family, tradition, and national affection, was now alone in a storm of his own making. Friends fell away. Royal allies went silent. The brother he once confided in became a stranger. The father he once stood beside now avoided him altogether. Isolation set in, followed by regret. He spoke of it in subtle tones, wishing for reconciliation, aching for the past. But the pain was no longer just emotional, it was existential. The institution he left behind had shaped his identity. Without it, who was he? In the UK, the public's view began to curdle. Polls showed a steep decline in support. Once a symbol of progress, Harry now seemed petulant, even self-serving. His causes, once noble, became overshadowed by constant grievances. People asked if he wanted privacy. Why the endless publicity? If he yearned for peace, why the continuous exposés? It wasn't that the public stopped caring, it was that they stopped believing. The boy they once rooted for had become a man they could no longer understand. Harry underestimated the toll of leaving the firm. The structure he had once railed against was also the only one that had ever protected him. Without it, every decision became a gamble, every appearance a calculation. He traded duty for freedom, but that freedom came at a cost: alienation, criticism, and a fading sense of purpose. And while his story is still being written, it's hard to ignore the brutal irony. The prince who fled the palace in search of peace may have found the world far harsher outside its gates. And while the world questions Harry's decisions, no one feels the impact more than the father he left behind. King Charles may wear the crown, but it's clear this battle is tearing him apart from within. For a man who waited a lifetime to ascend the throne, the moment should have marked a triumph. Instead, it has become a burden, an uneasy crown weighed down by fractured bloodlines, whispered betrayals, and the heartbreak of a son lost not to death, but to distance. As Britain watches the royal family teeter under the pressure of internal warfare. Charles has chosen silence as his armor, but that silence speaks volumes. Behind the stoic expressions and ceremonial duties lies a father devastated by a son's rejection and terrified of a future where reconciliation may arrive too late. Those closest to the king say he has retreated inward. Conversations with Harry, once tense but present, have reportedly ceased altogether. And in their place, Queen Camilla and a circle of seasoned courtiers have become his confidants and gatekeepers. Their advice? Stand firm. Protect the monarchy. Don't chase after a runaway prince who's aired the family's secrets to the world. But duty has never been enough to shield Charles from guilt. He has lived long enough to watch history repeat itself, first with Diana, and now with her son. He knows the cost of silence. He knows what neglect can do. And yet, each day that passes, without a word between them, drives the knife deeper into a wound he's never learned to close. The urgency is no longer theoretical. Charles's recent cancer diagnosis cast a long, somber shadow over Buckingham Palace. While the public rallied behind him with hope and well-wishes, those inside the family recognized what it truly meant. Time is no longer on his side. The window to heal, to reconcile, to rebuild, it's narrowing. And yet, even with mortality knocking at the door, Charles cannot seem to bridge the gap between crown and compassion. The conflict isn't just political. It's a spiritual war between his role as king and his role as father. And for now, the crown is winning. The specter of Diana looms large in this moment. Charles's complicated past with her, marked by coldness, infidelity, and regret, now echoes in his strained relationship with Harry. He sees, perhaps too clearly, that some patterns are repeating, that his inability to love without condition, to understand without defensiveness, may have driven his son into exile. And still, the guilt doesn't move him to act. Perhaps it paralyzes him. Perhaps the fear of being rebuffed by Harry a final time is too great. Or maybe, deep down, Charles knows he can't undo the damage. That whatever words are left unsaid may remain that way forever. What the world sees is a monarch balancing tradition with change. But what lies beneath is a man unraveling under the weight of broken kinship. His reign, once imagined as a unifying chapter for the monarchy, now drips with tension and tragedy. He leads, but he mourns. He smiles, but he aches. And in the quiet halls of the palace, where no cameras roll and no advisors hover, King Charles is no longer a sovereign, he is a father in silent collapse. Yet while the father weakens under pressure, the brother hardens his stance. He's the future king, and he knows it's time to choose between family loyalty and national integrity. Prince William has never been one for theatrics. While his brother bared his soul to the world, William remained the quiet, dutiful one, guarded, composed, and unwavering. But now, with the monarchy's image under fire and public trust on the line, silence has become its own declaration. He stands at a painful crossroads, torn between the emotional pull of brotherhood and the unrelenting weight of the crown. What the public doesn't see are the private nights of reflection, the whispered counsel behind palace walls, and the mounting tension of a man caught in a battle between legacy and blood. Inside royal circles, the question of how William should respond to Harry's unraveling has become a daily obsession. At stake isn't just the reputation of the monarchy, it's the very foundation of the institution he is destined to lead. Advisors urge restraint, caution, detachment. And while William once entertained the possibility of reconciliation, that door has slowly closed. Every explosive interview, every memoir revelation, every leaked conversation has chipped away at the fragile trust that once bound the brothers together. Today, what remains is a professional distance masked as emotional indifference. But beneath it all, the wound still festers. Kate Middleton, ever composed and calculating, plays a pivotal role in William's decision-making. Her influence is subtle but firm. She has witnessed firsthand how Harry and Meghan's actions have strained the monarchy and stained her own family's public image. While she has never spoken openly about the fracture, insiders say her loyalty lies firmly with the institution. And in William's eyes, protecting that institution means protecting the future for his children. The personal cost of severing ties with his brother pales in comparison to the responsibility he bears for the crown. In private, he may ache. In public, he stands immovable. But that doesn't make the burden any less crushing. William isn't just managing a family feud, he's carrying the expectations of a nation hungry for stability. Every word he speaks, every gesture he makes is dissected by the press, interpreted by the people, and preserved in history. He is a father, a husband, and a soon-to-be king, trying to steer a fractured family through a cultural storm. The pressure isn't just political, it's personal. And in this moment, even silence can be louder than any proclamation. William's refusal to speak on Harry isn't avoidance. It's strategy. It's preservation. It's the only way he knows how to lead while grieving the brother he may have already lost. In the court of public opinion, that silence has become a symbol. Some see it as cold, others see it as wise, but all can agree it's deafening. And it says, without ever saying a word, that William has made his choice. He's chosen country over kin, legacy over loyalty, future over familiarity. The divide may have begun with Harry's departure, but it has been sealed by William's resolve. And now, as the monarchy navigates its most turbulent chapter in decades, William stands as its anchor firm, unyielding, and painfully alone. But while the senior royals weigh their choices in silence, the Sussexes have been making noise across the ocean. Is it love? Is it strategy? Or is it a final act in a long PR war? Meghan Markle's role in the royal saga is anything but passive. She is either the woman who dared to challenge centuries of protocol for the sake of love, or the architect of a calculated rebellion that fractured the crown. In America, she walks red carpets and delivers empowerment speeches. In Britain, her name still triggers a firestorm. For every voice that praises her for breaking barriers, another accuses her of tearing down tradition for personal gain. And now, with reconciliation rumors swirling, the world is left wondering, has Meghan come full circle? Or is this just another move in a relentless pursuit of image control? In the United States, Meghan has meticulously rewritten her narrative. From podcast guest to podcast host, from royal outsider to Netflix executive, she's crafted a brand that fuses activism with celebrity allure. The press paints her in conflicting colors, either as a feminist icon silenced by monarchy or a skilled manipulator using social justice as camouflage. And yet, the timing of her public appearances often aligns with royal controversy, suggesting a pattern too precise to ignore. Whether it's her deliberate silence or a sudden media drop, Meghan's moves feel orchestrated. To her critics, it's a performance. To her supporters, it's survival. Whispers of reconciliation are gaining volume, but many believe they have more to do with relevance than redemption. As public sympathy for Harry wanes and media interest fragments, Meghan appears to be shifting her focus from conflict to closure. Industry insiders speculate that a truce with the royal family would not only mend personal ties, but also revive her global image. After all, Nothing captivates like a royal reunion, but beneath the polished messaging lies a complex motive. Is this a heartfelt desire for unity, or a carefully curated pivot to regain public favor? Behind closed doors, even her defenders are divided. Some insist she was never given a fair chance, battling racism, classism, and centuries of systemic rigidity. Others argue her grievances, however valid, were amplified for attention. What is undeniable is her influence over Harry. From the explosive Oprah interview to the decision to leave royal life entirely, Meghan's imprint is unmistakable. She stood beside him in exile, encouraged his candidness, and helped shape the tone and content of their shared media ventures. Spare. Harry's memoir may bear his name, but its echoes reflect both voices. What makes Meghan's role so polarizing is the sharp contrast between her demand for privacy and her simultaneous embrace of the spotlight. She has sued tabloids while signing streaming deals. She's spoken of emotional trauma while revealing intimate details to millions. And now, as the dust settles, she's straddling the fragile line between vulnerability and visibility. Is she re-emerging to heal old wounds or to redirect the spotlight before it fades? Her every word is parsed, her silence dissected, her motives questioned. But if Meghan's playing chess, one piece on the board threatens to undo everything. Spare. Words can wound deeper than silence, and Harry's memoir proved just that. Spare wasn't just a book, it was a bombshell. A literary grenade thrown into the heart of the monarchy, its pages soaked in resentment, pain, and unfiltered truth. It wasn't subtle, it wasn't restrained. It was raw, intimate, and at times, unforgiving. What was meant to be Harry's voice, the one silenced for years by palace protocol, became the very thing that shattered any remaining bridge between him and the institution that raised him. With each chapter, he exposed the inner mechanics of royal life, not as a palace, but as a prison. And in doing so, he crossed a line that even time may not be able to erase. The fallout was immediate. Buckingham Palace, long skilled at enduring scandal in silence, reportedly reeled behind closed doors. The revelations weren't vague allusions, they were specific, pointed, and personal. Private conversations, childhood rivalries, and family arguments were dragged into the light. King Charles was painted as distant, Camilla as calculating, William, Harry's own brother, as aggressive and unfeeling. For a monarchy that thrives on mystique and unity, this wasn't just an airing of grievances. It was a betrayal, a rupture of sacred trust, and it struck at the foundation of a family already teetering on the edge. In the public eye, the tide began to turn. Where once there had been empathy for Harry's departure, a belief that he was protecting his wife, seeking peace, escaping a hostile press, there was now fatigue, disappointment, even anger. Critics questioned his motives. If healing was the goal, why the detailed dismantling of his closest relationships? If privacy was the desire, why invite the entire world into the most vulnerable corners of his family's life? Supporters who once championed his courage now struggled to defend the relentless exposure. And the more the book was quoted, dissected, and debated, the more sympathy quietly slipped away. Inside the palace, hearts hardened. Whatever hope there had been for quiet reconciliation began to disappear. William, already distant, was now unmovable. Charles, torn between paternal instinct and royal duty, reportedly felt blindsided. And while Meghan had often been the target of royal distrust, it was now Harry who stood alone in the crosshairs. He hadn't just stepped away from the firm, he had declared war on it. And war has consequences. The emotional bridges were already cracked. Spare finished the job and set the remains ablaze. Rebuilding trust after such a public undoing is no simple matter. Because Spare wasn't fiction. It was personal history, written from pain, anchored in memory, and published for the world. It gave Harry a voice, yes, but it also confirmed the fears of those who warned against his rebellion. In choosing to speak, he may have forever silenced the chance for reconciliation. The book may be closed, but its impact lingers. It echoes through every royal appearance, every public poll, every strained silence between father and son, brother and brother. And it leaves behind a haunting question. What's left to salvage when your truth becomes the weapon that cuts the cheeky you deepest? And as the family wrestles with betrayal, the law prepares to make things official. It's not just family drama now, it's a constitutional crisis in the making. The battle over Prince Harry's titles has moved beyond palace whispers and tabloid speculation. It now sits squarely in the realm of law, history, and political power. Can the monarchy, with all its centuries of tradition, truly strip a royal of his birthright? Or does that authority lie, not with the crown, but with Parliament? The stakes are higher than most realize because what's being challenged is not just one man's position, but the very limits of royal authority in a modern democracy. Technically, the monarch does not have absolute power to revoke royal titles. That privilege, like so much of British constitutional law, is tangled in tradition, statute, and precedent. While the sovereign can bestow honors at will, removing them, especially peerages and dukedoms, requires more than a royal decree. It demands action through Parliament. Specifically, an act of Parliament passed by both houses and signed into law. That process hasn't been invoked often, but the path exists, and the pressure to walk it is growing by the day. The petition now circulating in the House of Lords could be the spark that ignites a full-scale political reckoning. History offers eerie echoes. When King Edward VIII abdicated in 1936, he wasn't just stepping down, he was stepping outside the monarchy's protection. His title shifted, his role evaporated, and the consequences reverberated for generations. Later, Princess Diana lost the style of Her Royal Highness after her divorce, though she retained the title Princess of Wales. And more recently, Prince Andrew was publicly stripped of his military titles and royal patronages in the wake of scandal. In each case, the monarchy acted decisively, but with Parliament either watching closely or quietly assisting behind the scenes. These weren't just family decisions, they were institutional resets. Legal scholars today are divided. Some argue that Harry's situation doesn't meet the threshold for such action after all. His departure was voluntary, not criminal or scandal-ridden in the traditional sense. Others counter that the repeated public criticism of the crown and the weaponization of royal status for personal brand building justifies serious intervention. If Harry retains his titles while simultaneously operating outside the institution, what message does that send about accountability? What happens the next time a royal goes rogue? The answers aren't just about Harry. They're about precedent and how far Britain is willing to stretch the meaning of monarchy in the 21st century. The consequences of removing Harry's titles could be far-reaching. It would signal a clear line in the sand, a message to future generations that the monarchy is not just a family, but a duty-bound institution with enforceable boundaries. But it could also unleash unintended consequences. The monarchy has survived for centuries by being adaptable, not punitive. A legal revocation could deepen public division, harden Harry's narrative of persecution, and open the floodgates for political involvement in royal affairs. It may solve one problem while creating several more. And once a constitutional mechanism like this is activated, it becomes easier to trigger again and again. But legality aside, the question that haunts everyone involved is painfully simple. Can there still be peace? After years of silence, betrayal, and heartbreak, can these wounds ever heal? It's the question that hangs over the House of Windsor like a low, unrelenting storm. Beneath the weight of scandal and strategy, there lingers a quiet ache for something simpler: forgiveness. But reconciliation, for all its beauty, is not born from longing alone. It requires trust, vulnerability, surrender. And for this family whose lives have been defined by duty, protocol, and pride, those things remain painfully out of reach. Yet still, there are moments, small, flickering signs that something might change. A missed visit, a softened tone, a quiet phone call. Hints that, perhaps, not all doors have closed. In recent months, Harry has extended feelers an olive branch in interviews, words of hope in public appearances. He's spoken of wishing to reconcile. He's hinted at regret, but actions have said otherwise. During his last visits to the UK, no meeting with William, no audience with Charles, only the cold echo of opportunity missed. The palace remained silent, and Harry returned to California alone. To some, this signaled finality. To others, it looked like hesitation, two sides waiting for the other to blink first. But the longer the standoff stretches, the more time becomes the enemy. Because even kings are mortal. Charles's illness brought a jarring clarity to a nation, and perhaps to his estranged son. Suddenly, the abstract idea of reconciliation had a countdown. The father Harry once saw as cold and distant is now facing something no crown can protect him from. And yet, despite the urgency, nothing happened. No reunion, no bedside visit. Just the same strained silence and bitter distance. For a family that has already lost so much, it's a heartbreak that feels both unnecessary and tragically predictable. Because if the past has proven anything, it's that pride often shouts louder than pain inside royal walls. Even Meghan has changed her tone. Publicly, she has stepped back, less combative, less visible. Her narrative, once defiant, now seems more cautious, more measured. Is it sincere reflection? A new phase of maturity? Or simply a shift in strategy as public sympathy wanes? No one knows. And that's the problem. Every gesture is dissected, every silence judged. The mistrust between her and the institution is so deeply embedded, it may never fully be erased. And as long as that doubt lingers, peace will remain just out of reach. But perhaps the greatest cost of this divide won't be measured in titles or press coverage, but in legacy. For George, Charlotte, and Louis, for Archie and Lilibet, their future is being written in the ashes of this family feud. What kind of monarchy will they inherit? One scarred by bitterness and silence, or one that found the courage to rebuild? The choices made now will echo far beyond these reigns. Because reconciliation isn't just a sentimental notion, it's a foundation. Without it, the next generation will inherit not a united institution, but a fractured dynasty built on wounds that were never allowed to heal. As the monarchy evolves before our eyes, one thing remains clear: the battle over Harry's title isn't just political, it's personal, and its consequences may echo for generations. Drop your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in the next one.